that of all the people that are working in Florida, 52% of those that are working are making income at 150% of poverty levels or less. Now what's that mean? Well, that means that half of the people in Florida are working in very, very low-paying jobs. And those that make more than 150% of the poverty level, the other 50%, those jobs are dependent on the level of education. And the level of education in the state of Florida puts us at 48th in dropout rates, 47th in people who finish high school. In other words, all the educational levels that are gauged by people who are knowledgeable in this field gauge Florida as one of the worst places of education. So I think it stands to reason that if Florida is losing population, which it is currently, and the population of Florida is going down for the first time in 64 years, I don't know if many of you have kept up with that, but this is the first time in 64 years where the population of Florida has not grown. So as a consequence of that, what we have is a decreasing market where the population growth is no longer the impetus for the economy. Because obviously, if every year you have 300,000 more people moving into Florida, many of them into Central Florida, many from Puerto Rico and from New York, what happens is that growth of 300,000 people generates jobs. Why? Because those people are building houses, selling insurance, selling gasoline, and doing all the things, and selling clothes for children going to school. And growth then has a pattern of its own. Those days are gone. So the question is, what does Florida do now? Unless we go back to growth, what is the future of Florida? How do we get to a point where we have more than 50% of our people working at service menial jobs that don't have much of a future? And how do we get from here to there? So I think that's a very, very complicated subject. But I'm gonna leave you with just two thoughts. And this is really one of the main thrusts of what I'm trying to say in this campaign. Right now, the state of Florida gets back 85 cents for every dollar that we send to Washington. 85 cents. And you say, well, that's the way it is. Well, that's true. That's the way it has been for the last 30 years, that we have been a donor state. But we are now a super donor state. And there's 4 super donor states. Florida's one of them. And when we leave 15 cents in Washington to be given to somebody else, what happens is that we don't have the funds to do the things that we need to do. You say, well, for example, well, you see Charlie Crist, the governor, who's now running for the Senate. He hasn't been much of a governor. Now he wants to be promoted to the U.S. Senate. But the point is this, that he embraced the stimulus plan. And everybody's in the Republican Party has been criticizing him for the embrace. But that $3.2 billion that he got from the stimulus plan, he put into the Florida budget, which is now under $64 billion. And that $3.2 billion prevented the laying off of 22,000 teachers. Now, we had a teacher here just a little while ago. Lillian is a teacher. Okay? If we hadn't taken the stimulus money, we would have had to lay off, the state would have had to lay off 22,000 teachers. So don't tell me we don't need, it's our money. These are tax monies that Floridians are paying into the national treasury. And why should we be getting 85 cents on the dollar? Now, I know this is a criticism of my own party because Bill Nelson is a Democrat. And many of the congressmen are Democrats. In the House and the Senate and the presidency is now in the hands of the Democratic Party. But I'm just saying that I'm criticizing my own party. So it's not a Republican-Democratic division. it's a problem that Florida is not getting its fair share. And the people that are representing you and me in Florida are not bringing back what we need for us to do a job. So the first order of business for me as a United States Senator to fortify our economy is to demand, as often and as much as I can, to demand that we would get from Washington a fair share of what we send to Washington. The second thing that I think we really need to do to get this economy in a way back to a process where we can be proud of our state again is to deal with the educational shortages that we have. Until we get this community, all Floridians, into a situation that we can compete with other states. Now, I know that money is not the only factor, but you cannot convince me. Some of you are from New Jersey. Well, New Jersey today spends $14,000 per student. The state of Florida spends $6,500 per student. Don't tell me that we're going to have the same quality education. That just doesn't work that way. So we have to be reasonable about these things. And I think we have to also be pragmatic as to how we approach the improvement of the educational levels of the state of Florida. If you look at the K through 12 figures, and if you look at the higher educational figures of Florida, again, we're at the bottom. And that can't be. If we want to vie economically, we have to improve our education. Thirdly is the issue of infrastructure. For example, we have this high-speed train that is now being discussed. You say, well, what's that have to do with Kissimmee? What does that have to do with downtown Kissimmee and the small businessmen? Well, you know what? There are two projects in the high-speed rail that are money-making projects. One is Los Angeles, Las Vegas. The other one is Miami, Orlando. The Miami-Orlando high-speed train will be such a major economic boom to all of Florida, but especially to Central Florida and South Florida, that it is inconceivable to me that we haven't been pushing this, and I can't believe that my friend Jeb Bush killed that project because it was well on its way. That is a project that if we're intelligent in Florida with proper leadership, we will be at the forefront of the new technology that's coming in America. In the 1920s, in Florida, we had the birth of Pan American Airways, Eastern Airlines, National Airlines. Okay? All those planes, the factories that built those planes went to California. Not one was built in Florida. Why? Because Florida wasn't prepared. Now we have another breakthrough in transportation, high-speed trains. This time, Florida has to be the manufacturing center so that the assemblages of those trains and the technology for high-speed trains needs to be based in Florida. Otherwise, it's going to go again to California or some other place. And lastly, I want to leave you with the thought of energy. At this point, the issue is that we continue as Americans to depend in our oil needs that are being imported 65% from countries that don't wish us well. That, in my opinion, has several solutions. One, of course, is for us to go and dig everywhere possible. And I think that doesn't make any sense if we're going to jeopardize, for example, our Florida shorelines and the tourism base that we currently have in our economy. I think that there is going to be a major change in the way fuel is a product of the economy. And I think that Florida needs to be prepared to be in the forefront. What's it going to be? Is it going to be atomic energy? Is it going to be algae that now becomes a fuel, which is a major breakthrough product? I don't know. But our universities and our corporations really need to be in the forefront of energy as we, in the next 10 or 20 years, change from an oil-based economy to whatever the next fuel is that's going to motivate and influence the economic cycle of the world. The theme this morning, of course, is the creation of jobs. And I think that we really need to do a much better job of thinking these things through and coming with solutions. I thank you for your patience, and I'm very happy to answer any questions.